The Lost Book of Enki, the 12th tablet. To come to earth one more time, Anu decided. With Antu his spouse he wished to come. While his arrival they awaited, the Anunnaki adobes in the Eden to re-establish began. From the mountain lands where descendants of Shem dwelt, to the olden lands the black-headed people migrated. Upon the newly dried soil the Anunnaki let them settle, food for all to provide. Where Eridu, Enki's first city, before the deluge had stood, on top of the Madrids of mud and silt a new Eridu was marked out. In its center, upon a raised platform, an adobe for Enki and Ninki was built. A house of the Lord whose return is triumphant it was called. With gold and silver and precious metals by Enki's sons provided it was adorned. Above, in a circle skyward pointing, the 12 constellations by their signs were marked out. Below, as in the Abzu, waters with swimming fishes flowed. In a sanctuary, a place that no uninvited can enter, Enki the Me's formulas kept. For Enlil and Ninlil, a new Nibiru key atop the mud and silt was established. Amid its people's dwellings and cattle folds and stalls, a sacred precinct was walled off. An adobe for Enlil and Ninlil therein was built. In 7 stages it arose. A stairway, rising as to heaven, to the topmost platform led. His tablets of destinies did Enlil there keep. With his weapons it was protected. The lifted eye that scans the lands, the lifted beam that penetrates all, in the courtyard, in its own enclosure, Enlil's fast-stepping skybird was kept. As the time for the arrival of Anu and Antu neared, for their stay in the Eden a new place was selected, neither Enlil's nor Enki's to be, Enki, the delightful place, it was named. Shade trees in it were planted. A pure white structure, the house of Anu, in its midst was built. Its exterior in 7 stages rose. Its interior like a king's quarters was. When the celestial chariot of Anu on earth arrived, Anunnaki skyships toward it soared. For a safe landing at the place of the chariots in Tilmun, it was guided. Utu, the place's commander, his great-grandparents to planet Earth welcomed. The 3 children of Anu, Enlil and Enki and Ninharsag, stood there to greet them. They embraced and kissed, they laughed and cried, so long has the separation been, they to each other kept saying. At each other they looked, aging to examine. Though greater in Shars were the parents, younger than the children they looked. The 2 sons looked old and bearded. Ninharsag, once a beauty, was bent and wrinkled. All 5 of them with tears were filled. Tears of joy with sorrow tears were mingled. In skyships, where the guests and their hosts to the Eden taken, in a prepared place beside Enki, the skyships landed. All the Anunnaki that on earth had stayed as an honor guard were standing. Hail and welcome! Hail and welcome! In unison to Anu and Antu they were shouting. Then, in a procession, singing and music playing, the Anunnaki to the house of Anu the guest accompanied. In the house of Anu, Anu washed and rested, then he was perfumed and clothed. Antu, by female Anunnaki, to the house of the golden bed was escorted. There she too washed and rested, then she was perfumed and clothed. In the open courtyard, as an evening breeze, the tree leaves rustled. Anu and Antu on thrones were seated. Flanking them were Enlil and Enki and Ninharsag. Attendants, earthlings, who were completely naked, wine and good oil served. Others in a corner of the courtyard, a bull and ram, gifts of Enlil and Enki, on a fire were roasted. A great banquet was for Anu and Antu prepared. For the sign in the heavens its start was awaiting. On Enlil's instructions, Zimul, who in matters of stars and planets was learned, the steps of the house of Anu ascended, the rising of the planets at eve time to announce. On the first step, Kishar, in the eastern skies appeared. Lamu, on the second step, was seen. Mamu, on the third step, was announced. Anshar, by the 4th step, arose. Lamu, on the 5th step, was seen. The moon from the sixth step was announced. Then, on a signal from Zamul, the hymn, the planet of Anu in the skies rises, began to be sung. For from the topmost step, the seventh, the red-haloed Nibiru into view came. To music the Anunnaki clapped and danced. To music they danced and sang. To the one who grows bright, the heavenly planet of the Lord Anu, they sang. On the signal, a bonfire was lit, seen from place to place where the bonfires started. Before the night was over, the whole land of Eden with bonfires was lit. After a meal of bull meat and ram meat, of fish and fowl, with wine and beer accompanied. Anu and Antu to their overnight quarters were accompanied. By Anu and Antu were all the Anunnaki thanked. For several earth days and nights Anu and Antu slept. On the sixth day his two sons and daughter Anu summoned. Of what had on earth transpired their accounts he heard. Of the peace and the warfare he learned. Of how the earthlings, by the oath of Enlil, to be wiped off, had again proliferated, Anu heard. Of the old discovery and the land beyond the oceans, and the chariot's place there Enlil to him revealed. It was then that of the dream and the tablet from Galzu Enki to his father told. By that was Anu greatly puzzled. A secret emissary by that name to earth by me was never sent. So did Anu to the three leaders say. Puzzled were Enki and Enlil, baffled they at each other looked. On account of Galzu, Zezutra, and the seed of life were saved, Enki said. On account of Galzu, on earth we remained, Enlil to his father said. The day to Nibiru you return, you shall die, so did Galzu to us say. And credulous of that was Anu. The change of cycles indeed havoc did cause, but with elixirs cured it was, whose emissary, if not yours, was Galzu, Enki and Enlil in unison said. Who of the earthlings to save wanted, who on earth made us stay? Ninharsag her head slowly nodded. For the creator of all did Galzu appear. Was the creation of the earthlings also destined? Of that I must wonder. For a while the four of them were silent, each one past events in his heart recounted. While fates were decreed, the hand of destiny every step directed, so did Anu say. The will of the creator of all is clear to see. On earth and for earthlings only emissaries we are. The earth to the earthlings belongs. To preserve and advance them we were intended. If that is our mission here, let us accordingly act, so did Enki say. The great Anunnaki who the fates decree, counsels exchanged regarding the lands. To create civilized regions, the great Anunnaki decided therein knowledge to mankind provide, cities of man to establish, therein, in sacred precincts, adobes for the Anunnaki create. Kingship, as on Nibiru, on earth establish, crown and scepter to a chosen man give. By him, the word of Anunnaki to the people convey, work and dexterity to enforce. In the sacred precincts, a priesthood to establish, the Anunnaki as lofty lords to serve and worship. Secret knowledge to be taught, civilizations to mankind convey, to create 4 regions, 3 for mankind, 1 restricted for Anunnaki resolved. The first region in the olden Eden land to establish for Enlil and his sons to dominate. The second region in the land of the 2 Narrows, thereafter to follow, for Enki and his sons to lord. The third region, with the other 2 not mingling, in a distant land to Ananna grant. The fourth region for the Anunnaki alone consecrated, the peninsula of the place of the chariots will be. Now this is the account of Anu's journey to the lands beyond the ocean, and how, in the first region for the Anunnaki, cities were re-established. Having the decision about the 4 regions and mankind's civilizations made, Anu about his grandson Marduk inquired. I must see him again, to the leaders Anu said. Whether by Dumunzi and Ningish Zeta to Nibiru inviting, Marduk's ire I myself have caused. So did Anu wonder. To reconsider the punishment of Marduk he wished. When to the lands beyond the ocean you journey, Marduk to meet you will be told. The land where he roams, in those parts of the earth it is, so did Enlil to Anu say. Before, for the distant lands the royal couple went, the Eden and its lands Anu and Antu surveyed. Eridu and Nibiru Key they visited, where the cities of the first region were planned they saw. In Eridu, Enlil about Enki complained. The me formulas to himself Enki is keeping. Anu, on the seat of honor seated, words of praise to Enki said, My son, for himself a magnificent house built, beautifully on a platform it is raised. To the people that the house surrounded and serve, great knowledge will Enki give. Now the knowledge that in the Mies is secreted, with other Anunnaki must be shared. Embarrassed was Enki, to share with all the divine formulas to Anu he promised. In the ensuing days, in skyships traveling, Anu and Antu the other regions surveyed. Then, on the 17th day, to Enki the royal couple returned for one more night of rest. In the morrow, when the younger Anunnaki before Anu and Antu for a blessing came, Anu to his great-granddaughter Inanna took a liking. He drew her closely. He hugged and kissed her. Let all my words heed, to the congregation he announced. This place, after we leave, to Inanna as a dowry is given. Let the skyship in which we the earth shall survey to Inanna my present be. Joyed Inanna to dance and sing began. Her praises of Anu as hymns in time to come were chanted. Thereafter, bidding farewells to the Anunnaki, for the lands beyond the ocean, Anu and Antu departed. Enlil and Enki, Ninruta and Ishkur with them to the Golden Land went. To impress Anu, the king with the great golden riches, Ninruta an adobe for Anu and Antu built. Its stone blocks, to perfection cut, with pure golden side were covered. A golden enclosure with flowers of carnelian stone carved the royal couple awaited. By the shore of the great mountain lake was the adobe erected. How the gold nuggets are collected, the visitors were shown. There is gold here enough for many shars to come, Anu, satisfied said. To a place nearby, Ninruta to Anu and Antu an artifice mount showed. How to a place for melting and refining metals it was made, Ninruta explained. How a new metal from stone was extracted he showed them. Anak, Anunnaki made, he called it. How, by combining it with an abundant copper, a strong metal he invented, he showed them. On the great lake, from whose shores the metal came, Anu and Antu sailed. The Lake of Anak, Anu called it, henceforth this was its name. Then, from lands from the north, lands where great horned beasts are hunted, Marduk before his father, Enki, and his grandfather, Anu came. Nabu, his son, with him was. When Enki about Sarpanit inquired, Marduk with sorrow of her death them told. Now Nabu alone with me has remained. To his father and grandfather Marduk said. Anu Marduk to his chest pressed. Enough, you have been punished, to him he said. With his right hand on Marduk's head, Anu Marduk to be forgiven blessed. From the golden place, high in the mountains, all who had gathered to the plain below went. There, stretching to the horizon, Ninruta a new place for the chariots is prepared. Anu and Antu's celestial chariot stood there, ready, with gold, to the brim it was loaded. As the time for departing came, Anu to his children words of goodbye and guidance said, Whatever destiny for the earth and the earthlings intended, let it so be. If man, not Anunnaki, to inherit the earth is destined, let us destiny help. Give mankind knowledge. Up to a measure, secrets of heaven and earth them teach. Laws of justice and righteousness teach them. Then depart and leave. So did Anu to his children fatherly instructions give. Once more they hugged, embraced, and kissed, and from the new chariot's place Anu and Antu for Nibiru left. The first to break the sorrowed silence was Marduk, with anger were his words. What is this new place of celestial chariots? Of the others an explanation he demanded. What after my exile without my knowledge has transpired? When Enki of the decisions about the 4 regions to Marduk told, Marduk's fury knew no bounds. Why will Inanna, a cause of Dumunzi's death, her own reign get. The decisions have been made, they cannot be altered, so did Enlil to Marduk say. In separate skyships to the Eden and its adjoining lands they returned. Sensing trouble, Enlil Ishkur to stay behind instructed, over the gold watch to keep. To commemorate Anu's visit, a new count of time passage was introduced, by earth years, not by Nibiru shars, was what on earth transpired to be counted. In the age of the bull to Enlil dedicated was the count of earth years begun. When to the Eden the leaders returned, the place of the first civilized region, how to make bricks from mud the Anunnaki the earthlings taught, therewith cities to build. But where once cities of the Anunnaki alone had stood, cities for both them and earthlings now arose. Therein and in new cities for the great Anunnaki, sacred precincts were consecrated. Therein the Anunnaki with lofty adobes were provided, temples by Marduk they were called. Therein the Anunnaki as lofty lords were served and worshipped. By numbers ranks were they honored, the heirship to mankind made known. Anu, the heavenly, the rank of 60 held, to Enlil the 50 rank was given. On Ninruta his foremost son did Enlil the same rank bestow. Next in succession was the Lord Enki, the rank of 40 he held. To Nanar, the son of Enlil, and Enlil, the rank of 30 was assigned. To his son and successor Utu the rank of 20 was allotted. 10 as a number rank to the other Anunnaki leaders' sons were granted. Ranks by the fives between the female Anunnaki and spouses were shared. When after Eridu and Nibiru Ki and their temple adobes were completed, in Lagash the Girsu precinct for Ninruta was built, his black sky bird there was kept. In Ninu, house of 50, was the temple adobe for Ninruta, and Bau his spouse called. The supreme hunter and the supreme smitter, weapons a gift of Anu, the Enunu protected. Where Sipar before the deluge had been, on top of the mud-soiled Utu a new Sipar established. In the Ababar, a shining house, an adobe for Utu and his spouse Aya, was raised. From there Utu for mankind laws of justice promulgated. Where because of silt mud the olden plans could not be followed, new sites were chosen. Adab, a site from Shurabak, not distant, for Ninharsag a new center was made. The house of sorcerer and healing knowledge was her temple adobe therein named. The mees of how the earthlings were fashioned Ninharsag in its holy shrine kept. For Nanar a city with straight streets, canals, and wharves was provided. Urim was its name. House of the throne's seed was its temple adobe called, the moon's beam to the land it reflected. Ishkur to the mountain lands of the north returned, the house of 7 storms his adobe was called. Inanna and Enki resided. In the adobe by Anu bequeathed to her she dwelt. Marduk and Nabu and Eridu dwelt. In the Eden their own adobes they did not have. Now this is the account of the first city of men, and of kingship on earth, and how Marduk to build a tower schemed, and wherefore Inanna the Mies stole. In the first region, in the lands of Eden and in the cities were precincts. By their Anunnaki lords the earthlings handiworks and crafts were taught. Before long were the fields irrigated, on canals and river boats soon sailed. The sheepfolds and granaries were overflowing. Prosperity the lands filled. Ki in Gi, land of the lofty watchers, the first region was called. Then, to let the black-headed people a city of their own possess it was decided. Kishi, scepter city, it was called. In Kishi did the kingship of man begin. Therein, in consecrated soil, Anu and Enlil the heavenly bright objects implanted. In it Ninruta the first king appointed, mighty man was his royal title. To make it a center for civilized man, Ninruta to Eridu journeyed. The Me tablets that for kingship divine formulas hold from Enki to obtain. Properly attire With respect Ninruta Eridu entered. For the me of kingship he asked. Enki, the lord who all the me safeguards, 50 me to Ninruta granted. In Kishi, where the black-headed people, with numbers to calculate taught, heavenly Nisaba writing them taught, heavenly Ninkashki beer-making them showed. In Kishi, by Ninruta guided, kiln work and smithing proliferated. Wheeled wagons to male asses harnessed. Craftily, Kishi first were fashioned. Laws of justice and righteous behavior in Kishi were promulgated. It was in Kishi that the people hymns of praise to Ninruta composed. Of his heroic deeds and victories they sang. Of his awe-inspiring blackbird they chanted. How in faraway lands the bisons he subdued, how the white metal to mix with copper he found. Ninruta's glorious time it was, with the constellation of the archer he was honored. All the while Inanna and Enki, her lordship, in the third region awaited. All the while the domain of her own of the leaders she demanded. The third region after the second one will come, her leaders thus assured her. Having seen how Ninruta to Eridu journeyed, how the me of kingship he obtained, Inanna in her heart a plan devised, to obtain me's from Enki she schemed. Her chambermaid, Ninshubur, to Eridu she dispatched, a visit by Inanna to announce. On this hearing, Enki to Ismud, his housemaster, quickly instructions gave. The maiden, all alone to my city Eridu, her step is directing. When all alone she will arrive, my inner chambers let her enter. Pour for her cold water to freshen her heart, barley cakes with butter give her, sweet wine prepare the beer vessels, to the rim fill up. When Inanna alone the adobe of Enki entered, Ismud, Enki's commands followed. Then, when Enki Inanna greeted, by Inanna's beauty he was overwhelmed. With jewelry was Inanna bedecked, by her thin dress her body she revealed. When she bent down, her vulva, by Enki, was thoroughly admired. From the wine cups sweet wine they drank, for beer drink a competition they had. Show me the me's, and Anna to Enki playfully said, let me me's in my hand hold. 7 times in the course of the competition, Enki to Inanna me's to hold gave. The divine formulas for lordship and kingship, for priesthood and scribeship, for love dressing and for warring, me's to Inanna Enki to hold gave. For music and singing, woodworking and metals and precious stones, 94 me's that for civilized kingdoms are needed Enki to Inanna gave. Holding her prizes tightly, Inanna from the slumbering Enki slipped away. To her boat of heaven she rushed out, to soar away her pilot she instructed. When Enki from his slumber by Ismud was awakened, get hold of Inanna to Ismud, he said, when from Ismud that Inanna had already in her boat of heaven departed Enki heard. To chase Inanna and Enki's skyship, Ismud, he instructed. All the me's you must retrieve, to him he said. At the approach to Enki, Ismud Inanna's boat of heaven intercepted, to return to Eridu, and the wrath of Enki face he made her. But when Inanna back to Eridu was brought, the me's with her no more were. To her chambermaid, Ninshubur, she gave them. To the house of Anu and Enki, Ninshubur took them. In the name of my power, in the name of my father Anu, I command you the me's to return. So did Enki angrily to Inanna say, in his adobe captive he held her. When of this Enlil heard, to Eridu to face his brother he came. By right the me's have I obtained, Enki himself in my hands placed them. So did Inanna to Enlil say. The truth of that Enki meekly admitted. When the time term of Kishi shall be completed, to Enki kingship shall pass, so did Enlil declare. When Marduk all this did hear, greatly he was enraged, his anger no bounds knew. Enough has my humiliation been to his father Enki, Marduk shouted. A sacred city of his own in the Eden from Enlil he forthwith demanded. When Enlil to Marduk appeal no heed paid, Marduk's fate in his own hands grasped, to a place that for Anu's arrival before Enki was selected, was considered. Nabu, the Ajiji, and their offspring from their dispersal lands summoned. From Marduk therein a sacred city, a place for sky ships to establish. When his followers at the place assembled, stones to build with they found not. Marduk how to make bricks and burn them by fire to serve as stone, to them he showed. Therewith a tower whose head the heavens can reach they were building. To thwart the plan Enlil to the place hurried. To placate Marduk with soothing words he tried. To stop Marduk and Nabu in their endeavor Enlil did not succeed. In Nibiru Enlil his sons and grandchildren assembled. What to do they all considered. Marduk an unpermitted gateway to heaven is building. To earthlings it he is entrusting. So did Enlil to his sons and grandchildren say. If this we allow to happen, no other matter of mankind shall be unreached. This evil plan must be stopped, Ninruta said. All with that agreed. It was night time, from when Nibiru the Enlilite Anunnaki came. From their skyships havoc upon the rising tower, fire and brimstones they rained. To the tower and the whole encampment a complete end they made. To scatter abroad the leader and his followers Enlil thereupon decided, henceforth their counsels to confuse, their unity to shatter, Enlil decreed. Until now all the earthlings one language had, in a single tongue they speak. Henceforth their language I shall confound, that they each other's speech will not understand. In the 310th year since the count of the earth years began did all this happen. In each region and every land the people a different tongue he made to speak. A different form of writing thereafter to each was given, that one the other will not comprehend. 23 kings did in Kishi reign. For 480 years was it the scepter city. It was also in Kishi that a beloved king, Etana, for a heavenly journey was taken. At the allotted time, let kingship to Enki be transferred, so did Enlil decree. To its soil the heavenly bright object from Kishi was transferred. When the direction to the people was announced, to Inanna, an exultation hymn they sung. Lady of the Mies, queen, brightly resplendent, righteous, in radiance clothed, of heaven and earth beloved, by the love of Anu consecrated, great adorations wearing. 7 times the Mies she obtained, in her hand she them is holding. For the Tyra of kingship they are appropriate, for high priesthood suitable. Lady of the great Mies, of them she is the guardian. In the 490th year after the count of earth years began, kingship of the first region to Enki was transferred. Its first king was the high priest of Inanna, Temple Adobe, a son of Utu he was. As for Marduk, to the land of the 2 Narrows he went. To be the master of the second region, once established, he expected. Now this is the account of how the second and third regions were established, and how Ningishzida was exiled, and Enki, Ararat, threatened. When Marduk, after a long absence to the land of the 2 Narrows returned, Ningishzida as its master he there found, its lofty lord Ningishzida was. With the aid of offspring of Anunnaki whose earthlings espoused, did Ningishzida the lands oversee. What Marduk had once planned and instructed by Ningishzida was overturned. What is it that happened? Marduk of Ningishzida to know demanded. Of the destruction of hidden things Marduk Ningishzida accused. Of making Haran to a desert place depart, a place that has no water, a boundless place where sexual pleasures are not enjoyed. The 2 brothers an uproar made, upon quarreling bitterly they embarked. "Pay heed, I am here in my proper place," Marduk to Ningishzida said. "You have been my place taker. From now on only a deputy of mine you can be. But if to rebellion you are inclined, to other land go away you must. For 350 earth years did the brothers in the land of the two Narrows quarrel. For 350 years was the land in chaos. Between the brothers it was split. Then Enki, their father, to Ningishzida said, For the sake of peace, to other lands depart. To go to a land beyond the oceans Ningishzida chose. With a band of followers thereto he went. 650 earth years was at that time the count. But in the new domain, where Ningishzida, the winged serpent, was called, a new count of its own began. In the land of the two Narrows, the second region under Marduk's lordship was established. In the annals of the first region, Magan, land of the cascading river, it was called. But by the second region's people, when languages were confounded, Him-Ta, the dark brown land, it was henceforth called. Netiru, guardian watchers, the Anunnaki, were there in the new language called. Marduk as Ra, the bright one, was worshipped. Enki as Ptah, the developer, was venerated. Ningishzida as Tehuti, the divine measurer, was recalled. To erase his memory, Ra on the stone lion his image with that of his son Asar replaced. To count by tens, not by 60, Ra the people made. The year he also by tens divided. The watching of the moon by the watching of the sun he replaced. Whereas under the lordship of Tehuti, the olden city of the north and city of the south were re-established. Marduk, Ra, and the two lands of the north and of the south into one crown city united. A king, an offspring of Netiru, and earthling, he there appointed. Mina was his name. Where the two lands meet, and the great river divides, a scepter city Ra established. Splendor to surpass Kishi in the first region, he gave it. Mina Nefer, Mina's beauty it was called. To honor his elders, Ra a holy city built. To honor Nibiru's king, Anu, he named it. Therein, on a platform, a temple adobe for his father, Enki, Ptah, he erected. Its head within a high tower, like a sharp rocket, skyward rose. In its shrine, Ra, the upper part of his celestial barge, deposited. The Benben, it was called. It was the one in which from the planet of countless years he had traveled. On the day of the new year, the king, as high priest, the ceremonies performed. On that day, only, alone in the innermost star room, he entered. Before the Benben, offerings he put. To benefit the second region, Ptah, to Ra, all manner of means gave. What do I know that you do not know? The father his son asked. Then all manner of knowledge, except that of the dead reviving, to Ra he gave. As a great one of the 12 celestials, Ptah to Ra the constellation sign of the ram allotted. The water flow of Hapi, the land's great river, Ptah for Ra and his people regulated. Abundance in the fertile soil quickly came. Man and cattle proliferated. By the success of the second region, the leaders were encouraged. The third region to establish they proceeded. To make it a domain of Inanna, as she was promised, they decreed. As befits the mistress of a region, a celestial constellation to her was assigned. Beforehand, with her brother Utu, the station of the twins she shared. Henceforth, as a gift from Ninharsag, her constellation of the maiden to Inanna was allotted. In the 860th year, according to the earth year count, was Inanna so honored. Far away in the eastern lands, beyond 7 mountain ranges, was the third region. Zamush, land of 60 precious stones, was its highland realm called. Arata, the wooded realm, was in the valley of a meandering great river located. In the great plain did the people cultivate crops of grains, and horned cattle herded. There too 2 cities with mud bricks they built, with granaries they were filled, as by Enlil's decree required the Lord Enki, Lord of Wisdom. For the 3rd region a changed tongue devised, a new kind of writing signs he for it fashioned, a tongue of man heretofore unknown. For Aratta Enki in his wisdom created, but the means of civilized kingdoms for the 3rd region Enki did not give. Let Inanna what for Enki had obtained with the new region share, so did Enki declare. In Aratta Inanna a shepherd chief appointed, akin to her beloved Dumunzi he was. In her skyship from Enki to Aratta Inanna journeyed, over mountains and valleys she flew. The precious stones of Zamash she cherished, pure lapis lazuli with her to Enki she carried. At that time the king in Enki was Enmerkar, the 2nd one to reign therein he was. It was he who the boundaries of Enki expanded, by its glories was Inanna exalted. It was he who the wealth of Aratta coveted, to be over Aratta supreme he schemed. To Aratta in Makar an emissary dispatched, as a tribute to Aratta's riches to demand. Over 7 mountain ranges through parched lands, and then soaked by rains, the emissary to Aratta went. To the king of Aratta the demand words of Enmerkar word for word he repeated. His language the king of Aratta to understand was unable. Like the bray of a donkey its sound was. A wooden scepter inscribed with a message the king of Aratta to the emissary gave. To share Enki's mise with Aratta the king's message requested. As a royal gift to Enki's grains on donkeys were loaded, with the emissary to Enki they went. When Enmerkar the inscribed scepter received its message in Enki, no one understood. He brought it forth from light to shade, he brought it forth from shade to light. What kind of wood is this? He asked, then to plant it in the garden he ordered. After 5 years, after 10 years had passed, from the scepter a tree grew, a tree of shade it was. What shall I do? Enmerkar, in frustration, his grandfather Utu asked. With heavenly Nisaba, the mistress of scribes and writing, Utu interceded. On a clay tablet his message to inscribe, Nisaba Enmerkar's taught. In the tongue of Arat it was. By the hand of his son Banda was the message delivered. Submission or war, it said. By Inanna, Aratta was not abandoned. To Enki, Aratta will not submit, the king of Aratta said. If warfare Enki desires, let one warrior in combat meet. Better yet, let us peacefully treasures exchange. Let Enki its mise for Aratta's riches give. On the way back, carrying the peace message, Banda fell sick. His spirit left him. His comrades raised his neck, without the breath of life it was. On Mount Hurum, on the way from Aratta, to his death was Banda abandoned. The riches of Aratta Enki did not receive. The mise of Enki Aratta did not obtain. In the 3rd region, civilized mankind did not fully blossom.